Today, we're diving into a fascinating story about how one single decision, a royal marriage, spiraled into total chaos and almost wiped a kingdom off the map. It's a wild ride and a serious lesson in how even the best-laid plans can go wrong. Let's get into it.
You know that feeling when you're reading a book or maybe watching a show and you just cannot keep two characters straight? Their names sound alike, their stories keep crossing, and you have to hit pause just to figure out who's who. It's kind of frustrating, right?
Well, in the slice of history we're looking at today, that exact same thing happens. But here's the twist. It's not bad storytelling. The confusion is actually the point. It's a huge red flag that something has gone terribly, terribly wrong.
Okay, so check this out. At the center of it all, we have two different kings ruling two different kingdoms at the exact same time. There's Joram, king of Israel in the north, and Jehoram, king of Judah in the south. And yep, their names are basically the same. Both come from a Hebrew phrase that means Yahweh is high. It was so confusing that even the ancient scribes had trouble keeping them straight. This wasn't just some weird coincidence. It was a sign of just how dangerously tangled up these two kingdoms had become.
So, how on earth did this happen? How did two distinct kingdoms get so mixed up that their kings were practically indistinguishable? Well, it all goes back to one single fateful choice, a political marriage.
And we're not talking about just any royal wedding. No, this was the decision that completely changed the future of the southern kingdom Judah and sent it down a path of total chaos and decay.
Now, to really get why this was such a disaster, you have to meet the in-laws from the north. We're talking about King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. They were the rulers of Israel, and they were, well, notorious for being corrupt and leading their entire nation down a really dark path. And they had a daughter, a princess named Athaliah.
And here it is, the alliance. This princess, Athaliah, daughter of those parents, gets married off to Jehoram, the king of Judah down south. On paper, it looks like a brilliant political move to unite the two houses, but in reality, it was like willingly inviting a virus into your home.
The historical record does not pull any punches about what happened next. It says, flat out, that Jehoram started acting just like the house of Ahab because he married Ahab's daughter. The marriage didn't just join their families. It basically imported the North's corruption right into the southern palace. The consequences were immediate and they were devastating.
So what did this decline actually look like on the ground? Well, this entanglement threw the kingdom of Judah into a full-blown crisis, pretty much undoing decades of stability.
You could see the ripple effects everywhere. First, as the text said, the leadership in Judah just adopted all the corrupt ways of the north. Then, the kingdom itself started to literally fall apart. The territory of Edom, which they controlled, rebelled and just broke away. Then the city of Libnah revolted. The way the story is told, it's as if the divine protection that had allowed them to thrive was just fading away.
And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? Before this entanglement, you had two kings, Asa and Jehoshaphat, who together gave the kingdom 66 years of stability. 66 years. But after the alliance with Ahab's family, the next two kings, Jehoram and his son, lasted a chaotic total of just 9 years. 9! The stability that had defined them for generations just collapsed.
But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. Just when it looks like the kingdom of Judah is about to completely implode because of its own terrible decisions, something else enters the picture. The narrative says that even with all this mess, God didn't let the kingdom be totally destroyed because of a promise made centuries before to their great ancestor, King David. This idea of keeping a lamp burning for David's family meant the dynasty wouldn't be snuffed out no matter how badly they failed. So the kingdom is right there on the edge, but it doesn't fall. Not yet.
So this ancient story isn't just about ancient kings. It actually illustrates this timeless idea we can call the entanglement principle. It asks a question that every person, every group, has to wrestle with. How do you live in the world without being swallowed up by it?
At its core, the story is about this universal struggle, right? How do you engage with the culture around you, making friends, building alliances, without losing the very things that make you who you are? Where do you draw the line?
It all boils down to one critical difference. Are you influencing the culture around you, or are you being assimilated by it? The kings of Judah thought they were making a smart alliance, but they just got absorbed. They lost what made them unique.
There's this great little story that just nails this idea. A mother who wanted to impress her pastor asked her little boy to go get the most important book in the whole house. She said, "Honey, go get the big book that Mama loves so well." And a kid comes trotting back, proudly holding the giant Sears catalog. It's hilarious, but it's also incredibly telling, right? The little boy knew what his mom truly valued, not based on what she said, but on what she actually spent her time on. And that's a sharp question for all of us, isn't it? If somebody just watched our lives for a week, what would they say our big book is? What do our actions, not our words, show that we really value most?
And that whole question of values brings us right back to our two kings, Joram and Jehoram. Their actions made it pretty clear what they valued, and now their intertwined story is heading for one heck of a climax.
Okay, so the final scene is set by a battle. The two kings, being allies, go to war together at this city called Ramoth-Gilead. In the middle of the fighting, King Joram of Israel, the northern guy, gets wounded. So both kings decide to pull back from the front lines and head to the city of Jezreel so Joram can recover.
So think about this. The very entanglement that defined their entire reigns has now physically brought them to the same exact spot. The king of the north and the king of the south are in the same city at the same time, one of them wounded, both of them vulnerable. They're basically cornered, and their shared fate is about to arrive.
And that's where we're going to leave it for now. You have two compromised kings, their destinies completely tangled together, isolated in one city. The stage is perfectly set for a final, dramatic reckoning. The question is, what happens next?